So thank you everybody for joining us and taking some time out of your evening to come listen to representatives of the Pennsylvania Ag Ed family here tonight. Dr. Scott Shealy is going to be leading our State of the PA Ag Ed webinar session, and we'll be hearing updates and reports from various representatives from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, Pennsylvania Association of Agriculture Educators, Pennsylvania FFA, and the Center for Professional Personnel Development. So Dr. Shealy, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, John. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and in talking to the leadership in particular of the PAAE, we were trying to figure out how to get the school year off to a good start, and we talked about the possibility of a letter or the commission, for example, piggybacking on a letter. And what we came up with was that PAAEs should still send a letter, try in the midst of that to reach out to all of the teachers, including those who are not PAAE members. But then that might be good, since there was pretty good response back in the fall to this State of Ag Ed type of thing that we did, to kind of replicate that format. So that's really why we're doing this. You know, we asked the obvious questions about what's the best time, and those of you who are teachers, we get it in terms of during the day is not a good time. So here we are at 6:30 in the evening. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Just speaking for the Commission for Agriculture Education, I mean, I think our attempt here is to be as transparent as possible, to share with you some of the things that have been happening. Some of you are intimately involved with the commission, others of you just really don't know as much, and we don't want that to happen. We want you to be aware. But there's a couple of things that have come up that we're really seeking input on. And I think that's the place that we'd like to focus tonight in terms of ideas that you have. In 10 minutes, Jonathan's going to turn off he'll open it up for everybody to speak. But, you know, we want to tonight kind of review what has been happening in the one meeting we had, and kind of the plans that we have for our November meeting. Talk to you a bit about some of the action that was taken and some of the resources that have been allocated. And then go through the problems. And then we'd like to ask each of the organizations to share a little bit about what they've been involved in. I'll just give Jerry Huskin and Lee Burkett and Gene Keller a heads up. I forgot to put you on the agenda, but I'm going to call on you. I'm just telling you. Sorry. And we'll go through that and, you know, have a chance to ask questions as we go ahead through the agenda. But so let me just start by saying that the commission has had a meeting just last week. And one of the things that the commission is really tasked with is doing what I would call fact finding, basically what's going on out there. What are things if you think of the broader system of adult education, what's going on in that system, and how are we dealing with gaps that may come up? How are we dealing with unexpected circumstances? How are we integrating things that happen? And again, remembering the scope of what we're talking about with Ag Ed being pre-K through adult and including all the rest of the pieces. How does that all fit together? So there's a couple things that the commission started with at its first meeting. One was we did an excellent panel. Several of you were actually on the panel, and maybe if you wanted to say a few words about it. But primarily the commission was concerned about how's it going out there with teachers, and really wanted to find out a little bit more about the circumstances, what's going on, and I think was just totally interested by the 4 teachers who presented. Casey, you were there. Darlie, you were there. Do you want to just say a couple words about, I mean, what you heard from it and what you heard as far as questions from the commission?
I mean, I think one of the biggest, kind of echo one thing that Charissa said. She used the phrase like the struggle's very real right now. And I think that was really reinforced, no matter what method your school was using to open, there are issues either way. So there's no perfect system right now with this whole deal. I think we addressed a lot of issues with internet access. There's still a major need for rural internet access. So that was something that was brought up as something that needs to be addressed. We were talking about ways to just improve quality of education and overall student health when you're working in the virtual world, dealing with not being able to see the kids and how they are, what kind of home lives they're dealing with. And then also, just trying not to lose sight of what we were trying to do before all this happened, and making sure that we keep some of those things in our minds as well, even though COVID seems to be taking up a lot of our time and energy right now, and the different ways that we're trying to teach. But I think they got a good idea from what's happening at each part of the state. And again, everybody's in a different scenario. So I think that was one of the things that was heavily emphasized there, that there really is a whole gamut of things being done right now, and no right or wrong way, really. So.
Yep, thanks. And Darla, did you have any comments or any reflections on what you saw going on?
I wasn't there, so
Oh.
I don't want to comment because I don't know what was
Sorry.
said, but
My
good
brain.
job of summary.
I had one of those brain things. Sorry. Yeah, so I mean, I think that what we saw was, even though the situations are different, we did see this particularly, I thought every one of the panelists spoke to this issue of access to the internet. And it didn't matter whether you were in a rural area in Western Pennsylvania or in Center City in Philadelphia. Internet access is a huge problem. So we heard that over and over again. I think that was a major theme. So, I mean, so much so to the point that we have actually added that as an item for our November 4th meeting. We have it on the agenda. We're trying to get the right person in the administration to talk about that, but particularly not do all the general talk about the internet and accessibility, but speak specifically to what may be going on in the education world. And I think maybe our friends at PDE can help us, find the right person. Casey.
I was going to jump in there because I just remembered as you were talking about Philadelphia, also with Tiffany sharing what's happening at WB Saul. They brought to light a lot of the diversity and inclusion, the Black Lives Matter movement, and she called it the second pandemic. So that was also brought up because that's another big current issue that is facing our industry as well. And I know from the FFA standpoint, Mr. Brammer, we had that issue at ACES back in February. And, we're dealing with this in all facets, not in ag education exclusively or anything like that. But that was another thing that was brought up as kind of another thing that's affecting our schools right now, depending on where they're located. And even, Lancaster County, for example, had a protest that went violent at one point in time here. I think it was back in August. So it's not just Philadelphia, it really is everywhere too. So that was another thing I wanted to share.
Yeah, we're going to make that a placeholder because we're going to come back to that here in just a minute, because that is actually on the work plan of the commission, and we'd like a little bit of help in addressing that. Anybody else? And I guess that you were the only one that was there, I guess, right? Yeah, Carol was there.
Carol was there.
Yeah, all the staff people were there. Okay, so that was our first big panel. We had a second panel during the session last week, and this was really our attempt to keep talking about the whole issue of how do we do agriculture education outside of the classroom. So we had, again, a very interesting panel. We had people representing 4-H. We had people representing the Boy Scouts. We had woman from the Center for Dairy Excellence, and also a person from the Farm Bureau. And what they talked about was how they are trying to do kind of supplemental education. They're trying wherever they can to fit it into what the schools do. But on the other hand, they're actually reaching different groups of people, of students. And I think this was just additional good information, that we were able to add to the mix of what's been collected. Any of the staff people or on anything you want to say about that? I mean, I thought it was a good panel. And then we did touch a couple of other issues. The issue of standards and how standards come back in. We had a young lady from PD.
Erin.
What was her name again?
Erin Donahue.
Yeah, Erin Donahue. Erin briefed us once again on what's going on with standards, and particularly the revision of the science and technology standards and the environment and ecology standards. So that process, I mean, my takeaway was that it's ongoing. One of the things that several of us who have been involved in this have been trying to do is to make sure as they define these standards, there's some kind of a crosswalk over to the AFNR standards. And it was sort of like you get a little bit brushed away by the fact that the AFNR standards are connected to some of the other environment standards. But I think what we're asking for is a more explicit kind of calling out of that kind of crosswalk so that we can see that easier. And then it was a kind of related issue when we talked about the standard aligned system, the SAS portal, where it's sort of the same thing. We're trying to say to the folks over there, we need to be able to index and define things by the AFNR. And I think we're getting good response there in terms of the folks who work with that, listening to that, and there will be an index, in some way or another. We just have to work that out. But there's still a lot of work to be done with SAS, and we're trying to keep that moving ahead as well. So that was another topic that we had a briefing on. And again, there'll be more to offer on that down the line. Other staff people, what am I forgetting?
You covered it all.
We actually talked about some money too. How can I forget? John Ewing, can you just give like a brief summary of what you guys presented and kind of the response you got from the commission before you go?
Yeah, and actually an update for you, Scott. I just messaged John and let him know that I've got somebody to cover me at the other meeting, so I'm all right.
Okay.
Hang on now. But yeah, so we were asked to, come up with some ideas, maybe how we could help teachers or help programs in the state with some of this additional funding. And I, of course, left my notes at the office on campus, but 3 ideas that we presented were around supporting the FFA Association in some way where they could support programs. We've been hearing that some programs aren't able to do their a lot of programs aren't able to do their normal fundraising, but yet there still might be some costs associated with operating, the FFA chapters in their programs. So whether that be to help out with an online virtual type conference expense, or to provide a good experience for students, or if it's something around, well, I guess that was our proposal, but in some way helping the FFA Association help ag teachers in programs. Second idea was around helping ag teachers through some type of grant program where teachers could write grants to help in response to what they're struggling with as far as current situations in either remote teaching or even face-to-face teaching, just with the change in setting, that sort of thing. And then the third was possible around, and that would be grant larger dollars probably to fewer programs. And then the third idea was something where we could put together some type of boxes or materials, if you will, around helping to teach either remotely, online, asynchronously, synchronously, just to help teachers during this time as well. And that idea revolved around less dollars per teacher, but it would go to, or program, but it would go to each program. And the commissioners listened, they asked a few questions, and I, they settled on providing a portion of the funding to FFA Association, and then the remaining funds to focus on the idea of some type of kit or box that goes to the programs, so that each program would get something versus just a few getting something. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah, so the urgency here is that we wanted, these were dollars that are already allocated, and that some of those will end in November. And we wanted to make sure that we had these committed and could get them out in time. There may be additional dollars that will come with what they call the 7/12 budget, the budget for the rest of the year. We just don't know that. So rather than take a chance on it, we decided to move ahead. Anthony Honeycutt, you were there at the meeting. What do you think? Mute. Need to unmute.
There we go. They summed it up real good. It was kind of cool, the meeting, to hear some of the neat things that you kind of got in mind for doing that. It was also pretty cool to hear from some of the other schools and how they were handling COVID on their, coming back and what they're allowed to do and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you summed it up pretty good so far. I mean, kind of reckon one thing that kind of since that meeting or whatever that I've kind of thought about a lot and so forth is a lot of schools said that no field trip policy, but they're allowing, go play sports, go do this, go do the other. But and I've been pretty fortunate with my superintendent and school district, and I've got them to understand that CDEs are not field trips, they're contests, they're part of your curriculum kind of stuff. And so, I kind of think maybe if we were able to get something from the, the higher powers that be that says, hey, those are not field trips. So if you have a field trip exclusion, please consider, letting chapters compete and do contests and stuff. So that was one thing that popped in my mind since our last meeting. And so I kind of thought would be good to throw in on this one, but yeah, that's about it for me right now.
Okay, well, I think that's something we can revisit, as we see things get a little bit clearer in terms of some of the budgeting stuff. We maybe can find some dollars there to help out in some way. So again, I think we had a good meeting. We had a pretty good quorum. We had many of the folks there, and I think that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. At the meeting in November 4th, we're going to kind of extend that, and we're doing a panel that is going to be on agriculture education in higher education. So we'll be hearing from people from Del Val and from, I don't know if any of you know Manor College, which has a postgraduate vet tech program in the Philadelphia area. And then also from Penn Highlands Community College, who is building an associate degree in sustainable agriculture. So we'll hear from them, and that kind of completes our round of, we've done the K-12 or K-8 thing, we've done the high school thing, we'll have done the post-secondary, and we'll see where that takes us.
Hey,
The
Scott?
other thing that we have committed to is that we will be discussing the issue of diversity. And again, we'll want to talk to you just a little bit more about that, but we already have that on the agenda. And the other one, again, as I mentioned previously, is that I think we just got to get after this this broadband issue. And this has been talked about ever since I came on board with PDA 6 years ago. And we still have this situation, and now it's even worse because we have so many more people who are depending on it. So we'll try to do our best to keep that in the forefront, and see where that takes us. So these are things that we'll keep working on. And does anybody, just from this kind of brief discussion, is there anything else that you see that maybe rises to the top as something that we should be thinking about for the November meeting, or even for our first couple of meetings in the year? Any other big issues that you see that we might have missed in some way?
Scott, I just wanted to share this. I put it in the chat as well. My husband sent me a picture of it because he reads the Hordes Dairyman. And there was a little clip in there, Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College in Georgia, Tifton, Georgia, is actually starting an actual degree that's specific to pre-K through 5th grade, I guess, for ag education. Penn State, our degrees as teachers are all K through 12 kind of deal. So, with all of our kind of younger grade level initiatives, I thought that might be something to just compare, see what they're doing, and if that's, something maybe to pursue in the future. I don't know. Dr. Ewing, maybe.
Yep, great idea.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, any others to kind of add to the list? Be thinking about it, because we're going to come back to you.
We
Here.
talked briefly about, I called Scott not too long ago and talked a little bit about like meat processors and stuff,
Yeah.
about how access to those and how a lot of our kids are having trouble getting stuff processed because just no one to do it because everybody's booked up and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of one of the things that you might want to try and get on there a little bit.
Yeah, and of course it's also an issue in terms of training people to be butchers. I think there are very, very few programs across the Commonwealth, and Penn State is talking about starting it's a butcher school, but it's not. I have the impression that it's maybe non-credit. I'm not quite sure about that, or a certificate. But is there some way that you could build some of that kind of training, for example, into culinary programs? We have culinary programs, and some of them do teach butchering, but can we lift that up in some way and kind of make that a bigger deal? So it's a big issue. I worked on this for the department when I was there, and we just don't have enough people who are in the meat processing arena. So it is a big issue. So let me just kind of move over to the bullet points that I have here, and some things that we have kind of identified as maybe problem areas where you may be able to help us with some ideas. And Jonathan's going to let you, in terms of your mute, he's going to take care of your mute button for you. And I think you want people to raise their hands, right, John?
Yes, if everybody can locate the raise hand icon, if you wish to be called on to unmute, you can hit that icon. It raises you to the top of the participant list and lets us be aware that you have a comment.
So one of the things that I've heard in a number of your conversations by listening in and being a part of meetings is some concern about how all this stuff with COVID is going to impact your completer number. And again, that's one of the numbers that we have out there, the commission has out there on its list of key variables that it wants to track. So right off the bat, you know, we get into a year that may be different. What are you doing in terms of trying to keep your completer numbers up? Are there things that in the midst of that you're running into that are problematic? Any institutional kind of things, any things with the system that could be looked at in terms of being more helpful? I'm concerned that when we get to the point of doing our assessment, which will come after the first of the year, of where the system stands, we're going to find ourselves lacking. And I guess I would say the same thing with, I'm concerned about SAEs. I've heard a number of teachers talk about it's hard to do this, and that unless kids have a job, with all the difficulties of staying after school and that kind of thing, it could impact SAE numbers. That would be another one of the key variables that we feel really strongly about. But this may be a year where we sort of can't trust the numbers, that we have to put asterisks up there, just like they do in the sports records. What about that? I mean, what can we do to kind of make sure that the numbers stay up there, and things you maybe already are doing, or any advice that you would have for us in terms of, Carol's on the line, she can talk about, you know, what she does, but how about the rest of you who are out there? What about the numbers? How do we keep the numbers up? See those hands go up.
Go ahead, Darla.
Yep. So I'll just ask a question about like the SAE numbers. So when we're pulling those numbers from AET, are we pulling foundational SAEs? Are we just pulling those that have like financial records? Because I think it's important to know how we're determining participation. And then if like, so for example, the past 2 years, I didn't really have students document their foundational SAE in AET because they were just using the SAE for all curriculum. But you know what I'm saying? So like, I think we just need to be on the same page for how those numbers are being compiled to accurately reflect what we're doing in our program. So are foundational SAEs going to be pulled into this? Should they be pulled into it? I think they should be, if you're using SAE for all.
So that sounds to me like a Carol Fay question.
So AET, for the data that we pulled, Darla, those foundational projects are included. But that is a concern across the state because there are kids who are using other forms of record keeping other than AET for a lot of different reasons. So, so some of you who have been around a while, maybe, I don't really want to say this out loud, but maybe we need to get back to Ron, the pony blanket or whatever back in the day, where somehow we can collect the data of the kids who aren't in AET for whatever reason. And the pony blanket, Scott, is just a form that the schools had to fill out that indicate, you know, with those indicators that we pulled off from AET.
Right, and I mean, I guess we talked about before the idea that not everybody is participating in the same way. And, you know, I think we need to do some thinking about how do we bring that together. We want to be representative of what's really happening. And if the electronic system only gets us so far, how do we get the rest of the way? I guess that's the question, right? So how do we get the rest of the way? Ron?
So are we most interested in data on existing SAEs, or are we more interested in trying to have every student have a viable, meaningful SAE?
Both. Right?
That's right. If you're going to use that, especially if you're going to use that as a data point.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to, it's collecting data for data's sake. There is a purpose there, but and we do want it to feed into the experience that the young person is having. But on the other hand, we are looking for accurate data. So again, is there a way to do both? What say ye?
So, Scott, my biggest concern is that we have whole schools where there are no SAEs occurring. And I see that as a bigger problem. I see schools where we only do traditional production ag SAEs. And I see that as a major problem. And yes, it would be nice to have data, but
here's my thing, is that we all believe in the three-circle model. This is the one of the three circles. If it's not being done, that's not the three-circle model, right?
correct. But how do we get to the point where we're doing SAEs in schools?
So maybe Gene Kelleher and Lee Burkett, is this a part of any of the certifying? Is there any way to encourage some of the schools that are not using it at all in terms of getting into a more robust usage of it?
Well, we're approved at the Bureau for new programs and reapproval. You see SAE, every scope and sequence. So that means every student should be doing an SAE. And if you're now, SAEs would be the greatest way to work through your class grid.
So I think maybe you're fading out, Gene.
This is Lee. So hopefully you can hear me. Mine's internet's not too good yet tonight. Anyway, yes, when we go out to review the programs, we do look at the scope and sequence. And when many of the schools apply for approval or reapproval, SAE is in that scope and sequence. So we believe that a lot of the programs, if not all of the programs, are utilizing SAE, but perhaps based on what we heard from Ronald, they really don't know what SAE is. So perhaps professional development. And I know, Carol, you're doing a lot with that, but I don't know if there's something else, you know, if PDE could do something there or not.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that we have, some of this is targeting the right people. We do have technical assistance in the form of Carol Fay, who is able to go out and do that kind of thing. You know, maybe we need to make a more concerted effort to identify those programs and to offer them the technical assistance with more than just a suggestion. I know none of us want to get to that place, but this is to me, this is like foundational. When we talk about the three-circle model, that's everything. That's what makes FFA and everything else, ag education, that's what makes it different. And if that's not being carried out, throughout our system, it concerns me as somebody, who has some responsibility for the system as a whole. So this is why I raised it as one of the first issues that, this seems to be something we need to do something about. Of course, and the other part I realize is I'm preaching to the choir, right? So I know your faces, and I know you do this stuff. So, but there's a bunch of other people who don't.
Scott, there's a comment in the chat box.
Scott.
I don't know if you need to read that or not.
You mean the one from Gene?
No.
Right.
Diana.
Mike, I don't know if that's what you were getting to. I think you muted yourself, but there's a comment in the chat box related to the decrease in students that went virtual and how that will affect scope and sequence.
Do you want to read that real quick, John? Is it one from Diana?
Sure. I know Sarah Beth noted that overall their numbers were down this year, and Megan also voiced a concern as to how students that chose to go virtual this year, how that would have pulling those students out of their scope and sequence.
Okay. Oh, here I see it. And then
Megan wrote, "My internet connection is terrible. Many students have decided to go virtual this year, which pulls them from following my scope and sequence. Some students have decided to only come to school for my class period as well, so they can still follow the sequence."
And then Diana has a note, SAEs require teacher time to guide and advise. Administration needs to support and understand, and they do not all have that understanding because they never have to take a course that educates them about CT and Ag Ed that includes the three-circle model. Support from administration would also include extra days and reimbursement to support time and travel. So she's suggesting that we start by beginning the administration or educating the administration in terms of the role of the SAEs in the program. And Gene Keller says that approved programs and through reapproval, SAE is a part of scope and sequence, and all students should be completing them each year. So, I mean, the mandate is there to do it. And, I think those of us who have been around the way this is done get it in terms of why that's there. But the question is, and again, the question I think the commission is confronted with is how do we make that better? And that's why we're here talking about it. Any other, comments on this? There is a comment that from Marty saying that their numbers are down. Some states grades based on three-circle model. And then saying that our administrators would not support that, nor would the parents. Interesting. And then a question about how is SAE verified during Chapter 339 approval? So has everybody agreed that we're not going to solve this tonight?
Well, if I could just add something too.
Sure.
Like our program, we try a lot to have every kid have an SAE. And so we do have quite a few non-traditional ones. And it is just really hard this year. Like our kids are tired. They're tired of so much change happening. And so if they had an SAE that they loved and it's not working right now, it can be really hard to convince them to try to do a different one. Or just their opportunities just look different. And so to be honest, like I love SAE and I try to encourage every student to have it, but Right now, that's not my priority. I'm just being honest. My priority is making sure that my kids' mental health is okay, especially if they're online all the time, like some of our students are. And my priority is making sure that they're getting their classwork done, which is what my administration wants me to do. So I recognize that in the future, we'll probably have to have more focus on SAE, but I'm not sure that right now that that's a thing that we should be dinging programs on, because there is just so much going on. And I love SAE, but I'm just being honest, it's not my priority at this moment. Not saying that they're not important, not saying that they're not part of the 3-circle model, but holy cow, these kids are going through a lot right now.
Yeah, I think well said. And I think one of the things that I found about COVID is that any problem that existed before COVID just got made worse by COVID. So, we got to put that in perspective as well. But I guess what I want to serve notice to you all on is that the commission is really interested in this, and we'll try to provide support in some way or another. It's an issue that we'll probably keep coming back to, but there's only so much you can do, and we get that too. So thanks for that.
Scott, Gene Kelleher made a comment I'd like to highlight in the chat. That's a novel and interesting idea as far as increasing the commission's visibility in the education community. I think it would only benefit to maybe attend some of these administrator conferences throughout the year and contribute to the education of administration into the ag world, which has been a long-standing and much needed factor that there isn't enough of.
Yep, I think staff will have to talk about that and take that under advisement. Sounds like a really good idea to me. It's part of the outreach that we have not done up to this point to a different group. But many of you keep, talking about your administrators not getting it. So maybe the commission can help them get it. And, again, I know they have a lot going on right now too, but at some point or another, we got to start this, and we'll see if we can do it in maybe a low key way. So if you don't mind, just for the sake of time, just to move on to kind of another issue. Thanks for the discussion on that. Really, really good. And this is what we need. This is the kind of feedback that we need. The other one that we keep coming back to, and we have some concerns about at the commission, is the Occupational Advisory Committee. We, the commission, have funded the center at Penn State for some technical assistance for programs in relation to occupational advisory committees. And here it's a question not just of how are the committees comprised. I have been in some places that are pretty wild in terms of who's actually on the committees, but it's also a question of how are those committees conducted. I mean, they are supposed to be a place for input from the business community, particularly the ag and food industry, on our programs. But there tends to be a lot of teacher, I don't want to say domination, but let's just say teachers do a lot of the talking. And sometimes the industry does not do a whole lot. That's of concern, because if there's going to be any kind of localized kind of nuance that's built into programs, that's the place where it's supposed to come. So what do you think about that? I mean, it's something that we have a concern about. Are you concerned about it? Is it an issue? I mean, is that something that you would put your hand up and say, I could use a little bit of help? Where do we stand with that right now? Everybody's OACs are perfect.
So if I could chum the water a little bit on that topic, does anybody find it difficult to, you know who and the types of people that should be serving on those OACs? Does anybody find it difficult to locate those folks that you know you need to be finding for that OAC, but you're just not able to locate viable ones?
We do a pretty good job on ours getting our local people, but when we're supposed to get post-secondary people to be on our committee, we might get one, but it's asking for an instructor and an administrator or someone from recruitment. And it's very difficult in our location to get people to do that.
We, with ours, we have some people in post-secondary that kind of more of a liaison type deal. And very frequently, they're invited to the meeting and so forth, but you don't get them there a whole lot.
Go ahead, Ron.
Have Zoom meetings made it easier for you to get people to attend?
Anybody say yes? Zoom meetings have made it easier?
I've heard comments from teachers that it has.
Maybe some people it might have made it easier to get there, but some of your local, like your local farmer people and that kind of stuff, it makes it a little tougher for them.
Scott, if I could highlight another comment from Gene, stressing that if an articulation agreement is in place with your program and an institute of higher education, they should be your higher ed representative on the OAC, and they need to be invited, but not all are required to attend.
Yeah, and it looks like from the chat box, there's kind of a mixed experience that some of you have had no problems, and you're kind of breaking the group up a little bit to make sure everybody's involved. And you have had good luck with Zoom. Megan has said that there's one person that a lot of the schools share. So that's, I guess, one way. And she says perhaps a committee for a county rather than each school might be helpful. So it sounds to me like one of the issues is just finding the right people for some of you. Yeah, Nick says he found that some of the people on the committee have actually lost their jobs because of COVID. So anything that you are doing that points to a solution to this that you could share? Okay, so I'm burning this in your brain. And Gene is telling us that a countywide OAC can be developed, but they do have to visit each school. So there you go. There's an idea.
Scott Casey has a comment.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just thinking, and I don't remember exactly what was maybe discussed or proposed, but wasn't there the idea of creating another Carol Fay, but for OACs and OAC specialists. I think just maybe having someone that, because I mean, Carol does a great job with helping teachers with the SAE part of this. I think if we could get someone we just need to replicate Carol and have someone that can help with those OAC questions and challenges, and maybe they can, do some of that networking for the teachers, because I go back to what Sarah Beth said, like right now, especially, like you're not going to be able to find people right now because you don't have time to answer all your emails and do your lessons and everything else, let alone be making contacts right now. So, maybe just someone that's also able to kind of make some of those connections for our teachers might be just helpful.
So here's the good news. John Ewing, you want to tell him? Tell him what the good news is?
Well, I thought that would be for you to tell, but if you want me to, I'll go for it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the Ag Ed Commission saw what we were doing with the SAE specialist through funding with, at the time, which was PAAE and Penn State to support the SAE specialist. And the commission liked the model and kind of how it was working. And so they have that. And we just need to figure out on the Penn State hiring part of things where we need to post that, and it'll go out. And at least for this initial year, we're looking for kind of a lead on that, being the OAC specialist, and probably some regional help. We're just not sure what exactly that'll look like yet, but so it might be multiple, like one main position and then a couple helper positions, if you will, partially because what you just said, Casey, if we can kind of regionalize it, some of those folks might know people on the workforce investment boards and those types of positions in their region or their area better to help. So sort of a coordinator, and then some regional helpers, if you will. And again, this is year one, so it'll probably look a lot like the SAE specialist, but just working on OACs. So yeah, that was actually part of my report later. So we're knocking things off, Scott. We'll be done with my report.
Okay. So, I think, again, we're trying to be strategic in terms of where we target little bits of funding that we have. And this was one of them that's a high priority. And again, if you go to the work plan of the commission, you'll find this to be one of the high priorities there as well. So as we said before with SAE, the issues that were there before are still there. They're in some ways they've been made worse by the COVID stuff and our situation right now, but they're going to be there when we're done with it too. So we're going to try to keep this alive, try to offer technical assistance where we can, and see where that takes us. So thanks for sharing that. So again, just to move on to maybe another issue, and I'm watching the time here, so I don't want to get you past 8 o'clock in any way. But we have, and I think your colleague, Anthony Honeycutt, has been a real advocate here. We have been trying to work with the commission on thinking through what about the issue of, when schools receive dollars through the subsidy and all the rest of it, and it comes into the schools, in the district's budget, and not all of it goes to Ag Ed. And I get it. I know the whole thing, local control, all that. But is there a way, and, is this the commission stepping up and getting out there and talking to superintendents a little bit more about it, or something else? I mean, and I'm bringing this as basically a question. We have a few ideas about it, but it's one that we maybe like to, we'd like to pursue in some way or another. And if you have ideas, this would be a great time to enlighten us here. It's a tough one. You get what I'm talking about, right? Right?
I think like what one of the points that, like most of you guys, you can look up and see what your subsidy is, what your school district brings in. because of your ag program. And as you see, those dollars don't necessarily end up in our budget. I can look at mine and I know it's nowhere near what I have to spend in my budget on supplies and all that kind of good stuff. So I think if we were able to do something, or if the commission or would have something to come out and say these are maybe the best practices or the way we recommend you spend your dollars. Maybe not a directive saying this is what you have to do, but this is how we recommend that some of these dollars are spent. And in that way, it would end up in our budgets more, and we would be able to do more things and, be able to teach with better equipment and that kind of stuff. So.
Thanks. Any other comments about that? Well, once again, issues that were there before COVID are going to be there after COVID. And, I think maybe commission staff can huddle a little bit on and really attack this a little bit more. I think some of it has to do with opening up the dialogue with superintendents. And maybe we can do that better than you can do that. But we'll have to work on that a little bit more. One other issue I just want to put in front of you, and that, as I mentioned, this will be something we'll deal with at the next commission meeting in November, is the whole issue of racial inclusion and how do we do that programmatically is on our work plan. And we will be considering that. We may need to ask you all for some information, collect some information from your programmatic stuff, to be able to do what we have been tasked with doing. So, I think, again, just to open it up here for a minute, I mean, have any of you started doing that in your programs, in your schools, in your district, that kind of thing? Anything that you would, you have found to be helpful that might help the commission staff as we begin to broach this issue and see where it takes us? It's a
Krista
tough
has
one.
a comment.
It's a tough one to get started with.
Scott, this
Yeah.
is Krista. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Talking about diversity and inclusion, National FFA has a wonderful program that's coming out. I say it's wonderful because I'm on the curriculum writing team, so I kind of already know what it looks like, or at least the beginning stages of it. And I think it's going to help all of us get diversity and inclusion included in our programs a lot easier. And they're also rolling out not yet, it's not ready yet, but they are rolling out very soon a program where kind of a train the trainer program, and it'll give us opportunities to provide in-service, because some of the conversations around diversity and inclusion are just tough, and it makes us uncomfortable, and that's okay. But I think that this curriculum / program, or whatever the right word is going to make this a whole lot easier. And honestly, I'm really excited about what's happening and what's going to come. So stay tuned. I don't know what the exact timeline is. The initial timeline was to have it rolled out by October, but I know that it's behind schedule just because it's taken a lot longer than we originally anticipated, for what that's worth.
It's worth a lot, Kristen. Is there any way we could get a preview? We, the commission staff, because that fits right into what we've been asked to do.
Sure. I mean, I can give you the couple of, honestly, right now we're on lesson number 5. So it's new, but yes, I can send that along and just kind of, and I could call you personally and talk you through it, what we're thinking right now. And I'm really excited because it's going to be not just for individual classrooms, it's going to be for FFA chapters, for officer training, and for the whole chapter. They're doing it right. I'm just really excited about what's happening.
So maybe you'd like to be our guest at the November 4th commission meeting.
I could do that if that's what you want me to do. Sure.
It's a date. We'll talk about it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Again, thanks for taking this time, to help us here. We're, we're like everybody else. I mean, we have ideas, but we like to kind of check that out. If any of you have anything that would help us, and particularly with this issue, which everybody's just getting started with, I think it would be a very, very good thing if you would share. So what I'd like to do is to turn it over now to the representatives from the various groups. Again, my apologies to our friends at Pennsylvania Department of Education, but Jerry Huskin, Lee Burkett, Gene Kelleher, what can you tell us about what's been going on at PDE in relation to Ag Ed?
Well, I'll start off for my colleagues. I think the commission has been a great model to get our 2 agencies to have an ongoing dialogue. I think a lot has been accomplished in the short period of time that the commission's been in existence. Many of you know that last year we, at the encouragement of the commission, we worked on expanding the vocational certifications that are available for Ag Ed folks to get into teaching. And that's something that's been put into motion and is available now for potential educators to help with the teacher shortage that's out there. Be able to have professionals in the field gain their certification through a vocational route, similar to CTE teachers that might be at a local school. Also, Scott alluded to some of the other accomplishments, I think, in areas of work that we've initiated with the Pennsylvania standards and the work on standards. Obviously, they're looking at the science standards this year. The ag standards are part of the environment and ecology standards. And Scott's on that committee, and I think Darla's on that committee as well, too. So Ag Ed is represented there, and I think there's a stronger Ag Ed influence in those standards moving forward, but we're keeping the commission updated on the work there, and I think Erin's coming back in November to talk about that again. Scott also referred to the SAS portal. That's sort of a resource that drives K-12 education, and we've tried to have a strong ag presence with the help of Tammy Peffer at PDE to make sure that the area where ag standards are included, the environment and ecology, that area looks like environment, ecology, and agriculture, and that resources, hopefully in the future, resources will be there that are aligned to the standards that can be available to all teachers. It can and to those non-traditional educators in the agricultural field. So there are a couple of the exciting ways I think we're partnering and collaborating. Scott hasn't talked about our K-8 initiative, but I know our folks at PD are involved in that as well, and looking at career ed and how we can make inroads there. So there are other areas that we're talking about now too as well, but the commission's just been a great way to get our 2 agencies to collaborate more deliberately, and hopefully we continue that into the future.
Thanks, Jerry. Lee or Jean, any comments?
Hi, this is Lee. Just a few announcements so that everyone's aware of what's coming up. Mid-October, we will be releasing the supplemental equipment grant. Many of you apply for that. We'll be going out with the Penn link announcement on that. Mike, I believe we sent you a copy of that Penn link, and then through the Ag Ed distribution list that went out, but the Penn link typically goes to one designee within the school district. So again, mid-October, we'll send that out, and then the applications are due mid-November. I'm sorry, mid-October, the announcement made, e-grants open, applications due mid-November. The other thing is we're updating 26 of the programs of study this year. One of those is the agriculture mechanics program. And we hope those of you that have the AgMech program become engaged in this. Because of COVID, we are doing this virtually rather than meeting in State College. So we're hoping more schools can participate. I do know the commission is interested in seeing additional specific content. Scott, maybe you want to talk about that. And then Jean's online, and since Jean's here tonight, Jean, do you want to talk about the on-site reviews?
And this year, being virtual, we are doing a Google document drive for on-site visits. We set it up to look exactly like the paper copy of the approved program evaluation tool, and schools are being invited that are up for evaluation from last March through the next school year to attend a October 6th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon meeting to about what it's all about and how to upload documentation. So we have quite a few going on this year.
Good. Thanks to all. And what Lee was talking about is that we continue to work on this whole matter of teacher training in relation to ag mechanics. And we have some things we want to do there with the apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship, and more to come on that as we go through. So again, thanks for sharing, folks. How about Mr. Brammer from FFA?
Sure, Scott. I'm going to first of all try to share a screen here. Hopefully everybody can see that. Scott, can you see the screen?
I can indeed.
Good.
Okay. So I'm just going to talk through this a little bit, give you a quick update on some things FFA related, and then have a special announcement at the end that's not in this particular PowerPoint, but obviously the state officers rolled out a new theme at the beginning of the year. I think most everybody's aware of it now, that it's more. That's the theme, more. I thought it was really, really cool, the fact that the state officers came up with this theme, and in light of what we're going through and what we're trying to do, and that we still want more. So I just think it's kind of fitting for what we're actually trying to do. So a couple of things that's been happening, of course, with the state officers. They're continuing to do their training. They've gone through what we call base camp. They've gone through what another program called Checkpoint One. They've done their State Officer Summit, which is normally done in Washington, D.C. They've also gone through some foundation training with our friends at the Pennsylvania FFA Foundation. And then they've been planning and working virtual workshops, are planning for virtual workshops throughout the course of the summer. So they have been very, very busy. All these training sessions have taken place basically virtually. National FFA is not coming out to do any of the trainings for us this year. Everything is actually being taken virtually. When we did the State Officer Summit, we actually had a chance to meet with Senator Toomey's staff. Senator Casey was actually on one of our calls, U.S. Congressman Fred Keller, and U.S. Congressman Glenn G.T. Thompson was actually on one of our calls as well. So we were one of the only states that had 4 visits the day that we actually did it. So we were kind of proud of that, but they were busy. They've also visited with Ag Choice Farm Credit, Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. Virtually, we met with Mid-Atlantic Farm Credit, Lancaster Farming, Cargill, and they've even met with a couple of the Ag Ed commissioners since they were elected. And of course, they've been planning for chapter visits, which are now underway. They've been planning for COLT, the chapter officer leadership training, which they actually did last night. And we have some new things that are coming. And of course, just like the rest of us, they're learning the virtual world every single day. As of right now, they have 23 chapter visits that are scheduled. 4 of those have actually been scheduled to be done in person. The rest of them will be virtual. As I said last night, they conducted the first ever chapter officer leadership training virtual conference. We had over 300 students that actually registered for that conference with 8 breakouts. All indications is that it was a pretty good success. We're waiting on some feedback now to kind of judge that, but the officers felt good about it. One of the things that they have coming up, and we're hoping to roll this out next week, that I am super excited about, it's called Inside the Jacket. It's a video series that will target first-year members. There'll be a series, the first time out will be 7 videos that will be 3 to 5 minutes in length for each one. We'll post them all on YouTube. We'll let everybody know that they're there. And these video series will cover things like proper official dress, what's SAE, what's a CDE, just the basic things that involve FFA. So we're looking forward to those. I think they have about, the last I heard, I think it was 23, 25 different topics. And we're going to see how these roll over, and then we'll see about Dave's actually putting out some more of them along the way. Most everybody knows about National FFA Convention, obviously being virtual. There is no cost to watch the 6 or 7, I think it's actually going to be an opening session and 6 individual sessions. There is a cost if you want to attend the workshops, the expo, the blue room, all the extra things that they have that takes place. To register, you must use a credit card. There is no rush to get that done because there's no problem with trying to get tickets and that kind of thing this year because it's wide open. The one thing I was going to talk about at the end, but I'll just talk a little bit about it now, and that's the Keystone degree process for this year. That's the state degrees. The committee met last night, and this morning we sent out some emails to the board of directors for approval. So there should be an announcement coming out to all teachers probably tomorrow. At least that's my goal. That says that the Keystone degree process this year will actually be done in 2 different phases. So you can have students apply as normal, which would be this fall, and there will be an evaluation process for those applications. And then we will award those in January, again, which will be virtual. And then we're going to do another round of those Keystones. So for those students that were concerned about whether or not they would qualify, because we've kind of been on lockdown for 6 months, we're going to do another round of those in March so that they have a little bit more time to get the hours and the dollar investments that they need. So again, watch for that email tomorrow. And then obviously those that we do in March will actually be recognized then in June. So we're not going to miss any of them. We're going to do the evaluation process of those applications online. We're going to do them all electronically. Carol's been working with AET to help us get those set up. We're going to set up a Google Doc to where you would actually go and register that application and then upload the PDF file. And then answer a couple of questions and also upload a photo of the student in official dress so that we can use that in our midwinter convention virtual presentation that we get to do in January. I'm getting a lot of questions on ACES and SLLC and I just can't answer them yet. At this point, I would say we're probably not going to be able to hold an ACES and SLLC in person. Even if the hotel says we can come and gather, I don't know if you're going to be able to travel to get there. So right now we're just kind of in a holding pattern when it comes to ACES and SLLC. Basically the same thing for summer convention. We have the dates set with Penn State to do June 1, 2, and 3. They have not said that, yes, we can come on campus with 1,500 people. Again, I don't even know if you're going to be able to travel come June. So we're in a holding pattern on that as well. And all I can tell you is that we'll do the best we can of letting you know as soon as we can what we're actually doing. we've been working with a couple of schools on some new charters. Otto Eldred High School up in McKean County is all but ready to submit their paperwork for a new FFA chapter. They have a certified ag teacher there. Two other locations have been talking to us, and that's the U School in Philadelphia and also the Commonwealth Charter Academy School in Harrisburg. We're working and talking with those two locations, trying to determine, can we in fact charter those two locations for an FFA chapter. So again, staying busy. It's a couple of our concerns and thoughts. They're kind of the same as what you're having as future FFA activities, conferences, conventions, virtual competitions, teaching students those social skills and face-to-face events the way that we've done it in the past. And we're just not sure how that's going to turn out. And of course, as always, we're here to help you. If there's anything at all that we can do to make your life easier, or anything that the state officers can do to come in and spend a day with your students, virtually visiting, we're all about that. They, in fact, spent the whole entire day today on Zoom calls with Dover FFA chapter. They have 3 teachers there, and we split up all the officers, and they were all on 3 different Zoom calls and visited with members all day long. So we're happy to try to do that for you. All you got to do is just reach out, let me know, and we will try to get it done. With that, if there's any questions or anything that that I can help you with, just let me know.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Brammer, for sharing. There's just, it's hard to do planning where we're at right now, not knowing when all this is going to end. So everybody's flexible, and we appreciate what you and the officers have been doing in terms of providing resources that maybe are a little bit non-traditional. So very good. Thank you. Casey, can you do a quick report for PAE?
Yes, I will make it quick, but I am also going to, I'd like to share my screen just to cover a couple key points if I could, please.
Casey, do you have screen sharing?
It says disabled.
Okay, I need to quickly jump you to co-host.
Thank you.
I could just find you. There you go.
There we go. Okay. So let me get this pulled up here. So from the PAE standpoint, I just want to quickly cover basically a summary of some of the things that have happened since we did our last State of Ag Ed webinar, summer conference, some organizational updates, things that we have seen happen over the last couple months here, some updates from NAAE, and then what we're kind of our current initiatives, what we're trying to work on to help benefit our members and just ag education in general across the state. So we did have our summer conference. It was a virtual format. We were hoping to go to Wellsboro in the northern region, but obviously with COVID that didn't happen. But I think we were able, with the help of all of our board members, to put together a really nice virtual conference over the 2 days for our members. We had some nice professional development. Penn State put together some good stuff for us, John, Dr. Ewing, et cetera. And we had about 80 members participate in that. We sent out some conference in a boxes and really tried to just allow for our members to connect with each other like they normally would have over the summer. And especially since it was such a rough end of the school year, I think it was a great way for us to really commiserate together, I guess you could say, and also learn some stuff like we normally do at our summer conference. Some different updates. We do have quite a few new board members taking over for the different regions. So KP from Greenwood for the South Central region, Kayla Poley, who is at Honesdale, is now for the Northern region, and Carly Wright for the West region. We also have a new executive secretary, Nick Eisenberg, is taking over that role effective September 1st. So we're excited about that. And then we just ran elections for president-elect because we ended up having 2 candidates, which was awesome. And Dave Steinfeld got that position. So we congratulate him, but that also means we have another Northern Region position open for VP. So we'll be addressing that here at our upcoming fall regional meetings. We also went through a website update. The Pennsylvania FFA Foundation hosts that website for kind of all of our Ag Ed family members. And we went with a new website, and I think it was a great change, a great update. We're really excited. It's supposed to be easier, it's cheaper, it's all those things that are beneficial to us. And Sarah Sparks with the foundation has also been helping us to set up kind of a G Suite account for our organization. And utilizing the nonprofits, it'll be free, and we can set up emails for our board members and executive members of the board, and that'll just allow us to have kind of that better communication, kind of that cloud storage feature for our documents and things, and be able to collaborate virtually, since that seems to be a lot more of what we're doing. So we're getting that up and running here. We had talked about that actually in the first State of Ag Ed webinar, that we were going to try to have a PAA email, but we were running into some hurdles. So Sarah Sparks has kind of helped us finally jump over that and get that set up, and hopefully run it in the next couple weeks here. And then Krista did a really great social media campaign for us just the other week here during the week of September 17th, because that was National Teach Ag Day. So we shared a lot of, I Teach Ag Because pictures. We had a lot of great participation from our ag teachers and our members from across the state, and really promoting the profession. And then we have just, I think, a tremendous group of ag teachers in the state, and we often see them being recognized at the national level. So from NAAE, we have several Region 6 winners that will represent us at the national or the convention here coming up in December. So Holly Oberholzer for Outstanding Ag Ed Teacher, Mark Anderson as Outstanding Mentor, Penn State for Outstanding Cooperating Center, and Allison Balmer for Teacher Turn the Key. And then Krista, again, you're hearing her name a lot here, being recognized as Teach Ag Champion for 2020. So, and some of our current initiatives, a lot of these we talked about because they align with what the commission is working on. So the revision of our science and standards revision, we actually had a couple ag teachers represented in that process. Darla Romberger was one of those. She was our past president and is at Cumberland Valley. Adam Searfoss from Conrad Weiser, and then also Brian Pfeiffer, I believe, is on the call here tonight too, from Northeast Bradford. So they were able to put kind of ag into this process and make sure that that's part of the thought process and how ag really connects to those science standards, and help to kind of make that more prevalent in the SAS system and in those standards. So that process should be coming up for public review soon. So I encourage everyone to kind of check that out. We talked a little bit about OACs tonight as well. So during our last board meeting, we actually had Beth Marshall speak with our board members to talk about the CTE certification approval process and kind of what we should be doing with our OACs, kind of that OAC guideline and best practices. So stuff that we can pass on to our members. And if we have an OAC specialist coming for us, I think that's going to be great for our teachers across the state and our PAA members. And then also we had someone approach us, Representative Barb Gleim, about the ag mechanics curriculum and NOCTI revisions. And this is definitely something that our ag teachers have felt is a need and that we want to kind of keep working towards. So we're kind of invested in working with the center, the commission, the Northeast Equipment Dealers Association, PDE, kind of all those stakeholders to kind of continue that process and try to make that kind of happen, whether it be with assisting with teacher training ideas, curriculum development, looking at grants and funding, whatever any of those organizations or stakeholders need, we're kind of part of that process. But the other thing is we are here for our teachers. So we know this is a struggle right now, and we're trying to just be a support system for our teachers, share resources, share ideas, and just help each other out. That's kind of what the professional organization is all about. Okay. So that actually, I don't know why that came up last, but teaching focus, we're really trying to help with our virtual needs right now for our members. And then we have regional meetings coming up here between October and November. They are all going to be virtual. So if anyone is interested in attending, just let me know. John is actually in charge of, and Beth, those Zoom meetings. So they have shared that out to our ag teachers across the state. So yeah, I think that about covers it. Does anyone have any questions?
That's great, Casey. Thanks for sharing. Let me move on here to John Ewing and ask you to give a report for the center, if you would, please.
I would be happy to give a very brief report. Thanks for putting me after the two folks that had great PowerPoints. I have nice written notes right now. So, hey, real quickly, because I am aware of the time, we have our new and beginning teacher professional development coming up, along with our biotechnology themed professional development getting kicked off October 9th and 10th up here near State College at the Wyndham. That will be face-to-face, and John and or Beth could tell you a lot more about that. And I'm sure if you have questions, they can answer them then, but that's coming up, and I know teachers are looking forward to being together, socially distanced, and doing some PD together. And I appreciate John and Beth putting the effort in to make sure we had all the hurdles jumped with risk management and Penn State to make that happen. Our student teachers are well into their fall semester. I just reminded them last week that we're going into week 6. We're in week 6 now. And that, you know, in about 4 weeks, they should have at least half of their units and lesson plans ready to roll for student teaching. And we only had to, you know, pick a few off the floor after they fainted. So they're working hard, and they should be ready to roll here. Well, they will be ready to roll by January. We're looking forward to doing our student teacher presentations again in December. Of course, it's going to look a little different this year, fully online, virtual. But we're hoping that that actually allows more folks to attend and see the great things that our student teachers are doing this fall to, and what they've done for the last 4 years to be ready to go out into the classrooms, to transition from that student to teacher. We've already touched on the SAE, OAC specialists positions. Carol is the SAE specialist. OAC, that call will be coming out as soon as I'm given permission to forward it out by the HR folks. Global Teach Ag, Daniel and Melanie and Joe, the whole Global Teach Ag team is working hard to provide international global experiences, opportunities, even though they can't travel right now, to our teachers in the state. Additionally, they're working hard on GLAG 21, so you'll start seeing announcements on that if you haven't already, to attend that virtual conference. I forget the dates offhand. I apologize. It's late January, early February this coming year. Quick reminder, there are DIY funds available to teachers. So if there's professional development that's out there that you need and that we can partner with you and your district to get you individualized professional development, we want to help with that. Especially during this time where, you know, it might have to be some type of virtual professional development, or even if it is a face-to-face, we want to help. So reach out. Beth's been putting it in the newsletter for the last few weeks. Also, I guess that's another good reminder. Make sure you stay up to date with the newsletter so you know all the happenings of the center. Any questions for me? John or Beth, any additions?
I've just been typing in the chat. The first session of the Fall 2020 Connect to Industry webinar series is coming up next week on October 6th, 3:30 to 4:30. It will be focused on the ag biopharmaceutical industry, specifically highlighting Lampire Biologic Incorporated, President Greg Krug and Operation Manager Gary Klinger. I've previewed their presentation. We've known about their company for quite a while. They are truly just a mind-blowing organization and two fantastic and phenomenal individuals. If you're at all interested, I encourage you to register, and I've provided a link there to do so in the chat box as well.
Great. Thanks, John and all. One other thing that I would like to mention, just as personal privilege, I've been working with a group down in Lancaster County through another job that I have, another consulting job, but the Lancaster Ag Council is working with the North Museum to actually develop some, which is kind of the main science and industry museum in Lancaster, to develop some materials related to ag education for kids in K through 8. And they will be rolling that out next Monday. There'll be a press release, press conference, all that kind of thing. But more importantly, we've connected all that up with ag careers. And I noticed in getting on the meeting tonight that several people asked about where can I get more information about ag careers and how to integrate them. Tuesday, this would be October the 6th at 6:30 p.m. in the evening. I'm actually going to be hosting a 1-hour webinar on ag and food careers and how do you connect with the career pathways. So I'm going to do a little bit on pathways, how all that lines up. We have 2 young people, one of our FFA officers who's going to give people a tour of the Ag Explorer website. And then another young person who was a summer intern over at Ag Farm Credit who's going to do a overview of their website on careers. 2 really, really good resources. And then we've also asked Tim Wentz from the Northeast Equipment Dealers Association to talk very briefly about apprenticeship and how can you connect up with that, particularly around ag service technician. And then we'll do some Q&A at the end and pretty much be done in an hour. Several of you have already signed up and we appreciate that, but I just wanted to make sure that the invitation got out a little bit more broadly. I did stick my email in the chat box, sjshealy@comcast.net. And if you're interested at all, particularly in that Tuesday evening piece, I encourage you to send me a note. I'll send you the link to the, it's going to be a Zoom type meeting, but it's another issue that's out there. You know, it was there before COVID. It's there now. It's going to be there afterward. And somehow or another, we need to begin integrating information on careers into what we do and teach every day. So unless anybody else has anything for the good of the order, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Very, very interesting. You did what I was hoping you would do tonight, which is speak up. And as we go forward, we need you to have that kind of involvement with what we're doing with the commission. I appreciate the partnership with all the organizations that we work with. I think we are, you know, we're at the point where we're becoming a team, and that's a good thing. And, you know, this is good for everybody. This is good for the ag ed system as we move forward. So again, my thanks. Any other closing comments? If not, we'll adjourn. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, everybody.